Hey guys, this is Toronto. Today we're going to be talking about cheap but powerful cards that you can add into usually pre-cons or, decks that you're building at the moment that are going to, increase the power of your deck and be kind of staple-ish kind of things. They're going to be cards that are pretty strong in any deck. Today we're focusing on the theme of counters. I've got cards from every color in here. I've got some multicolored ones, but mostly I just wanted to focus on, each color. I originally had, 2 of each color, but I kind of extended it a little bit after having a look at some other cards and stuff, because I was just very interested in it. So we're going to start here with black. So the first one we've got Idrana, Liberator of Maliki. Now black is not particularly known for, having +1/+1s. Sometimes if you're going into like Golgari or something like that, then you might. And Drana is a card that can go very well with that. It's going to make it so that each time you attack, each time she deals combat damage to a player, remembering that she has flying and first strike, you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So if you're attacking like with 3, 4, 5 creatures, you're going to go chuck a +1/+1 on each of them because of the fact that she's got flying and first strike. You're going to be very likely that you're going to be able to do that. So it can very quickly get out of control, especially if you've got some cards that, help proliferate or do some other stuff there with it. We've got the Whisper of Dross as well. This one here is very interesting. It's going to put a -1/-1 onto one target and then proliferate. So again, not very likely they're going to be running black as your kind of soul color if you're doing +1/+1 counters. But with this, it's a proliferate for 1 mana. It's very cheap. It's not only is it, very cheap in the fact that it's only 1 mana, but it's also only 12 cents. It's a pretty cheap card that you can add into any proliferate deck, that's got black. Like, for example, the upcoming Fallout Precon. This one is one that you could easily add in as a very cheap additional proliferate in there. We've got Taurine Mauler. So this is for red, obviously. You can pick it up for, $1 if you get the one from the list, 72 cents for the one from the list here. So it's got changeling, and then whenever an opponent casts a spell, you're going to put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's pretty kind of, selfish in regards to it. Red isn't super known for their +1/+1 counters, but the fact that it's got changeling means that, if you've got other stuff that's going to give +1/+1s to other, like goblins or something along those lines, then this could be a goblin. This could be whatever you want it to be. So, it's just a very fun card. And, there's a lot of stuff in red that's to do with like modified characters and stuff like that, modified creatures. So this automatically modifies itself, and, opponents are casting cards all the time. So this is going to build up pretty big if you've got ways to be able to do some awesome stuff with your +1/+1 counters. Next, we've got Ring of Velkus. Now, you might notice that this one is not a red card. However, it does only do stuff for red. So it gives, it's cost 2. You equip it for 1. So essentially, it's like kind of like boots. However, it's a boots that gives a +1/+1 counter on upkeep if the creature is red. So very nice and very interesting card, and only equip cost of 1, so you just chuck it on something and it's just going to slowly build itself up to get stronger and stronger during each upkeep. If you've got stuff there that increases the amount of +1/+1s you're getting, it's really nice. But the equipped creature has haste is a very interesting card, and yeah, it's a very cheap card that you can chuck in somewhere. This one is the one that made me decide to actually make this list here, because I don't think enough people know about Danny Pink. Danny Pink is a very, very, very good card, in my opinion. So he's got Mentor, so whenever he attacks, he can put a +1/+1 counter on a target attacking creature with lesser power. However, creatures you attack have, whenever 1 or more counters are put onto it for the first time, draw a card. So you can potentially draw 3, 4, 5 cards each turn if you go and chuck out some +1/+1 counters on stuff, which you can potentially do. You're in blue. There are so many ways for you to be able to put +1/+1 counters onto stuff. It's a very interesting card, a very nice card that you can put into a lot of different decks. You've got Wave Goodbye. So this one here, the normal version of it is only $1.31. It's returning each creature without a +1/+1 counter on it to its owner's hand. So if you've got a whole bunch of +1/+1s out there on your creatures, then it's not going to do it. It's essentially a 4 mana potential overloaded what's his face. Wow, my brain's not working. you know, the one that sends all the cards back to people's hands, that my brain is not working at the moment. Yeah, it's going to be an overloaded one of those. Someone tell me what it is down in the comments, because my brain is not working. It's a very, very good board wipe for only 4 mana. Yes, it lets people be able to cast their cards again and everything like that, but still, it could potentially, you know, just clear out the board, get you the win. We've got Bone Savers here. So this one is from the Warhammer 40k one. So you could potentially pick it up pretty cheap because it's, you know, only $1.45. So whenever the equipped creature attacks, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. There are so many ways to increase the amount of +1/+1 counters that are going onto stuff in green, that this is going to potentially be, you know, 4. This is going to be 5. This is going to be 6. Easily could be a whole bunch of counters going on to stuff that, and yeah, it's a pretty cheap kind of upgrade that you can chuck on. It's going to be expensive for you to cast, you know, it's 6 for you to be able to cast. However, it's going to be, you know, +4 each time it attacks. So it's going to be whenever it attacks before it deals damage or anything like that. So you chuck it on something and all of a sudden, you know, it's going up to an 8/8 and then it attacks again as a 12/12. It's going to make it so that someone needs to remove that thing. And then you could just equip it onto something else. Why not? We've got Evolution Stage. This, I am so surprised that this is only like 86 cents. And whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. So you're playing a land, you're proliferating. You know, you're in green, play 2 lands. Why not? Proliferate twice. You know, the world's your oyster. Play 1 million lands, proliferate 1 million times. Why not? I guess it's been reprinted in like, you know, 4 different commander sets. Is that like, is it just been reprinted like 4 commanders? That's crazy. Either way, an amazing card that is really, really key for green for +1/+1s. We've got Inspiring Call. Draw a card for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it, and then they gain indestructible. Really, really nice card. Been reprinted a lot, so it's pretty cheap, but also just a very strong card. Essentially like a, heroic intervention, but with card draw on it as well, because why not? We've got Abzan Falconeer here. This is going to make it so that each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has flying. I'm going to look at this for my my Optimus deck because it just seems really fun, making them all have flying. We'll talk about another one that's very similar later on. But either way, giving all of your creatures that have +1/+1 counters on it, and assuming you want your whole deck to have them, it's going to be crazy. We've got Lizelle. Now, you might look at this and say, Lizelle, she's $2.15. If you get the shitty version of this, I hate this art. I hate it so much. It's only $1 though, so you can go get this one for only $1. It's going to double. Sorry, it's not doubling. It is putting that many +1 of the counters that you put onto something. So, you know, you're putting 2 counters on it, now it's 3. You're putting 4 counters on it, now it's 5. So you can get some insane counters. Lizelle is very cheap as well, you know, only 3 costs, so you can get her out, you know, turn 2 potentially, maybe turn 3, depending on what color you're playing. There's got to be lots of ways for you to be able to make use of her and make it so that, you know, all of those proliferates are now proliferate twice. You're going to put 2 +1/+1s on instead of 1. There's lots of really great ways for you to be able to do that, as well as its counters on yourself too, which is, you know, XP counters or stuff like that, as well as planeswalkers as well. There's lots of really great ways you can use this. We've got Felidar Retreat, landfall, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. This is essentially Evolution Stage, but potentially better, because it's an enchantment, so it's less likely to get removed. You have the option of creating a beast if you happen to lose all your creatures or something like that, and it gives vigilance as well. But, you know, go into green-white, use both. Why not? Just treat yourself. There's lots of really great ways for you to be able to use this. It's a card that's printed a lot. It's on the list at the moment, but it's also like in a whole bunch of like decks and stuff. Like, oh, actually, starter commander decks and Phyrexia all will be one starter decks. And New Capenna as well, because why not? There's just lots of ways for you to be able to use this, and it's just going to be a really great card in any kind of white counter deck. Now for the multicolored one, so we've got Cutzil here. She is just bonkers. So anytime one or more creatures you control with power greater than its base power, so if it's got like, 1+1/+1 on it, you're going to draw a card when it deals combat damage to a player. Now, I don't think this is quite as good as Danny, because Danny's whenever you put a counter on it, but with Cutsil, you can do some crazy stuff with this. But this part here is even better when your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. So this part here is for the +1/+1 strat. So just look at that part. But then she's got this added bonus of making it so that opponents can't cast spells too. We've got Winged Hive Tyrant. So we talked before about the Abzan Falconeer giving flying to each thing with a +1/+1. Now imagine if they had flying and haste, and it was just all counters. So, if you've got like a shield counter on something like that, it's going to be able to do it too. Now, it is more expensive, costing 5 rather than 3. And, you're in blue-red, which isn't particularly known for their counters. But chuck some green in there, because why not? You love yourself. And then you've got, a flying haste enabler that's going to just be bonkers. We've got Denry Klin, Editor-in-Chief. So this is very, very interesting. So you're going to, when Denry enters, you get to put a +1/+1, a first strike, or a vigilance counter onto them. And then whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, if Denry has counters on it, put the same number of each counter on that creature. So if you've managed to get Denry up to, having 3 +1/+1s on it, and then you have something enter the battlefield, it's going to enter with 3 +1/+1s. If you have, 2 +1/+1s, a first strike, and a vigilance somehow, I don't know how you managed to do that, but good on you. And then, they enter, then all of a sudden you've got, a creature coming in with 3 +1/+1s, a first strike, and, whatever else you wanted to put on them because you love them. There's just lots of different ways to use Denry, and very, very cheap. We've got Repulsive Mutation. So this is a new one, a counter. I made so much use of this in the in the sealed event. You put X +1/+1 counters onto a target creature you control, and then counter up to 1 target spell where its controller pays mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. So if you have something that's very strong, right, you can use this. You can put 1 +1/+1 counter onto it, and then counter that, and then all of a sudden they have to pay 6, otherwise their thing's countered. So it's a 3 mana essential mana counter. Or why not go with a do 6, and then all of a sudden, because it's almost your turn anyway, and your mana's about to untap, do 6, all of a sudden you're putting 6 +1/+1 counters on it. They've got to pay 12 or something dumb like that. And then, you've also just got all that +1/+1 counters on it. So it's an interesting way to have a counter that's tied to counters. Very interesting. All right, and then the last one here is Feast of the Victorious Dead. At the beginning of your end step, if one or more creatures died this turn, you gain that much life and distribute that many +1/+1 counters among creatures you control. So if, for example, 5 creatures died this turn, you get to go gain 5 life and then put 5 +1/+1 counters among creatures you control. If you've only got 1 creature, why not just put all 5 onto that 1 creature? If you've got 5 different creatures, put a +1/+1 on all of them. Why not? Have fun. There's just lots of really interesting ways to use it. But anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. This is going to be a new series potentially if people really enjoy it and stuff like that. There's lots of really great +1/+1 counter stuff, but we focused on the cheaper stuff here, not Vorinclex, because, that's just insane. Have a great day and goodbye.